if you want to make a lot of money, do you want to never see your family? Do you want to make a lot of money and never have a relationship? Do you want to make a lot of money and be hated by friends, family, society? Oh, well, because you got to tell the genie everything, or the genie's going to hand you some crazy shit. And the genie handed me crazy shit. I built a digital agency. I grew it to well over $100,000 a month with 90%, 80% margins in about 6 months. I'm like, okay, I'm back to I'm good now. I'm good. And I was like, oh, wait, I didn't ask the genie for a life.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
My
man.
pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
You are somebody who's able to bridge the worlds of value and entertainment better than anyone I've ever met. Like, you are actually funny, and you actually have a lot of insights to share. And there are very few people in the world who can do that. So I'm excited to break that down. But before we get there, I want to talk about psycho-cybernetics.
Okay.
Why is that the first book
On my
that
list?
you recommend?
On my reading list.
On your reading list.
Okay. Psycho-cybernetics was so interesting to me. Number one, because you take a surgeon. I mean, this is a heavy topic to start, guys, but hey, trust me, it's going to be good. You take a surgeon who spends his whole life basically changing people's lives. They've had an accident. Their face, particularly their face, has gotten mangled or messed up. It's the worst thing that can happen, right? And this guy goes in. He's the leading surgeon in the 70s. He fixes your face, right? And what he noticed is some folks would come out of that back to normal, back to going to work, high-fiving everyone, going out to coffee, being the high-spirited individual that they were before the accident. And some people, it changed them for life. They stayed bitter. They pulled in. They didn't go out to social events, even though their face was back to its original characteristics, right? And I thought that nothing could be more interesting, right? And so, of course, to the doctor, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, he notices this and he says, maybe it's not about your appearance. It's your inward. It's a how you see yourself, not how the world sees you, how you see yourself. And as someone who has suffered from, a misaligned self-image, nothing could speak to me more, because my whole life I'm like, who the fuck am I? And so when I saw that, hey, number one, you can change and you can improve your self-image over time. It felt like the most powerful tool I'd ever heard of, and it helped me a lot. The way it helped me was I used this. By the way, psycho-cybernetics means mental steering. Okay, so if you haven't read the book, obviously you've read the book and you love the book. The idea of mental steering means that over time you can steer yourself back into a direction where maybe you want to go, maybe a little bit more confidence, maybe a little bit, sweet dance moves on the dance floor, whatever it is that you're into, right? And for me, when you establish a self-image that has a lot to do with your job, and for me it was Wall Street Nick, New York Nick. That was my nickname, New York Nick. And so I not only had left New York, I had left Wall Street. So in a spiritual sense, it's as though I had a catastrophic accident and had my face rearranged, and I didn't know who the fuck I was. And so I used this technique to see who I was. And I used this kind of visualization exercise, I used it to explore who I was and who I wanted to be. And it changed my life.
Dude, so you mentioned in a previous podcast, the two things you have to do every single day, the things that you do, are exercise and visualization. So the visualization piece is the exercise that he recommends or something else?
Yeah, so I did a 30-minute cybernetic visualization every morning for probably a year, 2 years, and it got me. You guys are gonna think I'm making this up, okay? But it got me to where I am today because I was having these visualizations. Let me regale you with my visualizations. I would step out of this car, of this beautiful luxury car, in a particular restaurant. We're not, guys, you got to pay us if we're going to shout out your restaurant, all right? I'm not going to say the restaurant. I step out of this particular restaurant, and I walk in, and the whole thing with visualization is every detail matters. Do they look at you like they've seen you before? Are you a regular? Do they look at you like they're annoyed with you? Do they look at you like they're so happy you showed up? And when I walked into the restaurant, everyone already knew me. And this was loaded with information. Why does everyone know me already? And it's giving me chills right now to even talk about. And what I realized was I had a deep desire to do something notable that was good. I wasn't notable for shooting up a diner in Jersey. I was notable for doing something good. Of course, in this visualization, did I have any idea what the hell that would be? No. But I said, well, I'm surely not going to go back and tuck myself into a hedge fund where no one can see me. If I want to be well known and notable, I have to be doing well known and notable things. And not until 6 months later did I decide to stick my head on the internet. So, now this sounds like a lot of deep level genius, spiritualism. I think we all have a roadmap, or at least an idea of where we want to go baked into us, into our identity. And this process, I don't want to credit Maxwell Maltz with this whole thing. It's introspection. It's organized introspection. So if you were to get organized about your introspection, you would learn more than being a disorganized, non-introspective person. So I became a militant introspective person because I had no clue where to go with my life. I've had no idea where to go 2 times, not just once. So I left Wall Street, no idea where to go. Just knew I couldn't stay there. Went to New Orleans, played in a rock band for 2 years. Totally insane. That experience was directly at one of my biggest dreams, is being a blues rock musician. Okay, I got close. I didn't get the cigar. Okay, left me bankrupt, like literally down to zero, working in a clothing store that I got from a friend who knew me when I lived on Park Avenue in New York City in a multi-million-dollar apartment. And I'm asking her to work at a clothing store because I didn't want to miss my rent in New Orleans.
Wow.
Okay. And in that moment, I had to say, who do I want to be? In that moment, I said, well, I don't want to go to Wall Street, but I need to make a lot of money. And I left it at that. That was the problem. So I went ahead and made a lot of money. And I did that really fast because that was the only thing I wanted to do. But here's the problem, kids. Your vision is much deeper and richer than I want to make a lot of money. It's I want to make a lot of money I want to make a lot of money and not just I want to make a lot of money. So let me explain. If you want to make a lot of money, do you want to never see your family? Do you want to make a lot of money and never have a relationship? Do you want to make a lot of money and be hated by friends, family, society? Oh, well, because you got to tell the genie everything or the genie's going to hand you some crazy shit. And the genie handed me crazy shit. I built a digital agency. I grew it to well over $100,000 a month with 90%, 80% margins in about 6 months. I'm like, okay, I'm back to being, I'm good now. I'm good. And I was like, oh, wait, I didn't ask the genie for a life.
Wow.
I'm miserable.
There's so much there I want to break down.
I'm just rushing through it all.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's go slow, baby. Let's go slow.
I thought we were paying by the hour here. What's going on?
So the first thing I want to bring up is that you said you've always struggled with self-image.
Yeah.
When did you first notice you had a problem?
It probably started when I was a little kid, but I've been doing some work recently where I've been really plumbing my experience, and it's intense. And I had an experience in college where I was always rambunctious and loudmouth, and I'd like to play with people and mess with people, not in like a bullying way, but I just love to push people's buttons and have fun. A joker, a clown. I loved it. And there was one moment where I pushed the wrong person's buttons in college, and it got me into a lot of trouble, man. And it took me years to realize that I didn't deserve it. I was just being myself, having fun. And so I punished myself for years, and I shut off that fun spark in me, and it went dormant for years. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So I had to find how to get that back. How'd
you get that back?
Introspection, asking myself a lot of questions. And and also honoring who I used to be before the event.
What was the event?
The event was me being a loudmouth, rambunctious, probably more like my rich guy character as a kid. I just didn't know any better. And I got into a little altercation, and it didn't hurt me it hurt me socially. It didn't hurt me physically, hurt me socially. And it was really fucked up, man. And it took me a while to go back into that moment and be like, actually, I think you just were dealing with a fucking problem on the other end. I think you were okay. And I had to learn to love the clown and the joker that's inside of me that I pushed down. Be serious now, Nick. No more of this joking around. Go make some money. Okay? Stop clowning around. You're not here to have fun. And now I think the complete opposite. I am here to have fun. I am here to joke around. And when I walk into to the podcast room, whether it's mine, whether it's yours, the first thing that I do is say, be yourself. Be yourself.
The process of becoming ourselves is something that it seems like we almost have to uncover. And we have to remove the layers of ourselves that other people have placed on ourselves, whether that's a parent or a friend or a social situation where you have yourself, and now you put layers on top, society's expectations, and then you come back, hopefully, at another point in your life, and you recover and rediscover what it is, who you were in the beginning.
Yeah.
Does that resonate for you as well?
It does. And those layers that you're talking about, those layers can be described in a lot of different ways. Some people call it trauma. I'm not the expert on that, but that could be what that layer is. It's a direction you take, a protection you take. So you say, you know what? I'm not going to speak up in the meeting because the last time I spoke up in the meeting, John shut me down, and it was humiliating. It's like, well, with this discovery process, you go, well, maybe John had a bad day. It has nothing to do with me. Maybe my protection mechanism of shutting up during the meeting is actually a poor, old, dusty mechanism that doesn't need to be employed anymore. And over time, you can just sort of let it go. Even when I started doing this, I was just like, all right, this is going to be business. We're going to get the biggest experts. Like, I put this other character on top of myself. Like, all right, now you're going to be like the most serious podcaster ever. It's like nothing could feel more ill-fitting than stuffing some weird make-believe identity on top of yourself. I mean, ultimately, you can hem yourself into a corner with characters and with skits and even the things that I, as fun as they are, people assume I'm either one character or the other. It's like, guys, I'm both. Hello, they're both coming from me. They're both sides of me. And to me, this discovery of doing podcasting and just being me out of character is such a joy and a privilege to be able to do this, because for the first time I just get to be me. And the weight comes off,
Yeah. Were you carrying around a weight, it felt like, for a long time?
My whole life is, how can I make you laugh? How can I make you smile? How can I make you like me? And what better way to do it than with comedy and skits and being bombastic? And I realized, hey man, is there a possibility that people just like you for you on a neutral day? So I spent a lot of time trying to get attention as a kid because I didn't really get it from my parents as much as I wanted. I shouldn't say as much as I wanted, as much as a kid needs.
Yeah.
And I acted out in one way, but I was also the perfect son, the straight A's, that kid. Yeah. Because guess what? You get attention that way. You're like, oh, I'm the golden boy. Of course, when you're the golden boy, you push down your own uniqueness. Do you relate with this? Have you heard this before?
I personally don't relate to it, but I know and have seen the pattern play out again and again.
Yeah.
And it's usually the people who are the funniest or the people who need perfection in any realm are often because they haven't found that from the source that all humans need. And that is from our parents. And go back to that. What's the first situation you remember of not getting the attention you desired from your parents?
I think, the way that I grew up, I grew up with a family that split when I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even have any time to get the good stuff when you're 7, 8, 9, It was just popping back and forth between mom and dad's house. Mm-hmm. And anybody who's ever done that, and it's a lot of the population, I think it's like 60% of the population, it sucks. Yeah. It's a nightmare. It's a joy that both of my parents were in my life, but it's not a joy cobbling together, two families and dealing with two family dynamics that are completely different. It's a lot of work as a kid, man. And plus, as a kid, all you're trying to do is, I got to get school done. I got to play lacrosse. I got to impress the girls. I got to have a girlfriend. Oh, and I live in two different houses. And I don't know if I left my book at mom or dad's house. It's just like, it's a lot of fucking work, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can ask anyone on my team. I do a lot of things at the same time. So I'm literally like writing a book, filming skits, building an AI company. Like I'm just like, I'm going to do all the cool stuff, and now I'm just making sure that all those things that I'm doing, I want to do. Not that I'm doing it so you think I'm cool or successful or smart.
Exactly.
Hopefully you already think that because I'm on the goddamn podcast. Too late. No. You already brought me in here, you asshole.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of the times people do things because they look at what other people think is going to be the cool thing. Mm-hmm. And this is like, you're in the AI world right now, right? Mm-hmm. AI is like the coolest thing, the where all the...
It's so cool.
So, like, how do you guard against that?
I am not doing anything the way that anyone else is, though. That's I just... There's a paradigm for how to run a podcast, and there's a paradigm for how to run social media, and there's all these paradigms, and I'm like doing it all wrong, quote unquote, right? Like I'm not following any trends. Even when I was doing Rich versus Really Rich, people are dancing in their living room, and I'm like creating like wealth, like discussions of wealth veiled with comedy and discussions of being kind and promoting collaboration, which is my view for how the universe works, through veils of inappropriate, locker room talk and poking fun at an annoying character, right? So, like, so then you throw away all the rules for whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a chef, throw away the fucking rules. If you're a drummer, throw away all the rules. That's where you stand out, as opposed to being like, I'm gonna get the trend perfectly right. And for you, it's the same thing with building a podcast. You're like, you probably, I'm guessing, I'm guessing your first, I didn't know you that long, but maybe your first 10 episodes you said, this is how I think a podcast should sound and look and be, because I've watched a bunch and I've done my research, and now you have your own model for how you run your show.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yeah, of course.
True or false?
It's true. No, it's very true, and it's you figure out the way you want to do it by doing it a lot is how I found, and that's why the people who are older in life are better at living. Yeah. Typically,
especially if they're still alive. Just, you know what I mean? The data. They're still alive, so they're better at living.
Because they have a better sense for themselves.
Right.
And the people we are most attracted to are actually just living the life that they would live regardless of if anyone was looking at it or not. Yeah. Yes.
So for all of the technical content that I do, and I'm doing more, I'm getting away from doing humor, and I'm just trying to say, like, how can I help you the most in 17 seconds? Right? How can I help you the most on some deeper level shit that you probably haven't thought of, that I think about all day, that isn't clickbait, 3 ways to make your bed faster, whatever. I don't think anyone would click on that. But it's just like, how can I do that and see what happens? And that's what I'm doing, which is, I don't know. Everyone's like, and I fucking unfollowed you for that shit. That's so boring, man.
Well, yeah, take me through the Rich vs. Really Rich series, and then why stop it?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal, right? So I shut my I shut my digital agency down. I'm in my apartment in Chicago. Shout out to the city that works, Chicago. I'm like, I'm gonna go from making a lot of money to making $0. But I've done this before. I've gone from being rich to being poor, and from being rich again. So I'm like, what's another run at it? You know, we're gonna be just fine. I was scared shitless. You know, I was just like, I was scared shitless, but I was also like, what I'm not scared about is I'm not going to do anything I don't want to do ever again. I can't do it. You've done it twice, Nick. Don't do it again. And I've gotten close to doing it again. We could get into that monetization things and stuff like that. But I'm sitting at my kitchen counter, and I'm like, all right, you are going to do. I read this quote from Naval. Who, dude, I know you like Naval, my man. I know you do.
How do you know?
I could just tell. I just know. Naval has this beautiful way of summarizing really complex ideas into like a fucking Twitter one-liner. Yeah. What the fuck is it called? A tweet.
A tweet. Believe
just
it or not.
edit that, dude.
Just don't edit it.
Tell the
Video
editor
King
it.
Pablo, absolutely do not edit that out.
So there's this one-liner. I'll never say the word Twitter or tweet ever again on camera now. It's fucking trauma. Okay, that is real trauma. Indelible. He says, there's a new form of leverage. I'm going to paraphrase. There's a new form of leverage in town, meaning we used to have all this leverage. It was called, you get a lot of people, you can build them out. You can build a house, right? You got a lot of money, you can give it to a lot of people, make them do what you want to do, right? Or gather up resources and whatever, right? And then software. You build a robot, the robot does what you want. And it doesn't charge you rent. Just does it. Doesn't complain, doesn't take a coffee break. And he said, you know what? There's a new form of media that's frictionless and costless. Okay? So permissionless and costless. Frictionless. What that means is I don't need to ask you for permission because back in the day, to do this, I'd have to go to Fox News or whatever. I don't know if it's Fox News. I'd have to go like to Johnny Carson and be like, Johnny, you want to have me on your show? And he'd be like, no. And that was it. You're done. Now it's, I'll create my own fucking show. Mm-hmm. Oh, and it's costless to disseminate it. And he said, that's media. That's the new form of leverage in society. Mm-hmm. And I said, Naval, I could do that. I could do that better than anybody else. Why? Because I can screw around on camera and I don't care. Okay? I have something to say, and all these channels are free and on my phone already. So, by the way, when I said I could do that, Naval, I didn't mean I knew I would be successful. I knew that I could try. I knew that I could try. So I set up a classic Nicholas Crown iteration where I created 30 days. I said 30 days, you're going to make one post a day for 30 days.
And this is when?
This is 2 years ago. It was about 2 years ago.
So we're looking at June of...
We're looking in October.
October of 2021.
21.
Wow.
Yeah. So recently.
Yeah, relatively.
And I just started making these TikToks, and I made them on digital nomading. I made them on marketing, SEO. I made them on like some financial stuff, which I vowed to never talk about financial stuff ever again after I left Wall Street. And then I was like, you're not unique enough. This idea of combinatrix, another thing that Naval talks about is if you're an alpine skier, you're in the 30 percentile of people. Because a lot of people ski. But if you're a clarinetist and a downhill skier, you are a one-of-a-kind fucker out there. Yes. You're a clarinet playing downhill skier.
And that's you.
And that is literally me. But you have to find in you your downhill clarinetist, and everyone has one in them. You have to plumb the depths to find out who you are. Or you can take a notebook and you can write 1, 2, 3. I am pretty good, not really good, at 3 things, because you don't need to be really good with combinatrix. You just need to be 30%. So you're like, I'm pretty good at guitar. Okay. I'm pretty good at, I worked on Wall Street. That's pretty weird. Okay. And I'm like really obsessed with wealth and status, that topic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a friggin' weirdo on our hands right here. Like, nobody does those 3 things. Probably nobody does those 3 things. It's a good bet. I mean, if there is, Stay out of my lane, dude. You know what I mean? I got that. Okay, that's my niche. Stay out of my lane, bro. I will come at you. I'm not above that. And so that's what I did. On day 17, pretty sure it was day 17, I said, rich versus really rich.
Well, what were those first 16 days like?
It was, hey guys, I'm in Sweden, and let me tell you how to get a good deal on a hotel. Hey guys, I am just thinking about how to build a Facebook ad campaign. Mm-hmm. And this is how I would do it. Or, you know what? When I wake up, here's my morning ritual. And of course, when nobody knows who the fuck you are. They're like, okay, cool. Morning ritual. I don't know who you are, but sweet. But the thing is, I got a little taste of some views. I didn't get no feedback. I was like, oh, that was pretty helpful. Oh, and actually, thanks for sharing that. I never really thought about it. That was the beauty of TikTok. You could start to connect with people day one. So I was getting a few hundred views, a few thousand views from day 1, 2, 3, 4, whether they're real or not, who knows, but let's say they're real. And day 17, I said, no, you're never going to do skits. You promised yourself you wouldn't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't do skits. I was like, well, Nick, you've said you're going to do different things every day for 30 days, and you're running out of ideas. So maybe you should try a skit. And dude, I sat at my kitchen counter, and I thought, what if I had a rich guy and a really rich guy, and they order from a restaurant completely different? The battleground of behavior and status is at a restaurant, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I put them at a restaurant, and the characters were slightly different in the beginning, and I amended them in real time. I optimized the characters for laughs and for educational purposes, right? And in this moment, the rich guy he wasn't so much rude. He was just wasting your time. Like, I'm sorry, is the cow, do you know the cow's name? Do you know is it grass fed? And we're just like, whatever. And then it cuts to the really rich guy, and he's like, 2 beers in a bottle, 2 steaks medium rare, and don't come over here unless you hear a gunshot. And that video did 5 million impressions in one day.
Wow.
And then I was on dig.com, which I didn't even know what that was. My friend was like, dude, you're on dig.com. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck that is, but it sounds cool. He's like, you're on the front panel of dig.com. I was like, all right, sweet. And then in the game of iteration, when something works, you push that button again and again. I pushed that button for a year. Yeah, every day for a year.
How did that trigger and bubble up the version of yourself that needed love and adoration?
Yeah. There's this weird thing that happens, right? Because I don't know. I'm not mature and intelligent enough not to get into the emotional roller coaster that is social media. Okay?
The algorithms are smarter than us.
Way smarter than us. They're manipulating us, or they find the most vulnerable people out there to manipulate. Okay? But it was a creative enterprise for me to create these skits, and I believed, even though I had no idea and still don't fully understand how to monetize this thing, I was like, I will make a lot of money doing this some way. So I was like, a lot of people are liking this and enjoying it. You get a lot of love and adoration. And I'm like, at some point, I will figure out, and dude, I'm the ultimate, the stories of Silicon Valley companies like, we don't know how to make money, but we'll figure it. Like, I'm allergic to that. But I found myself saying it because I was like, I don't know what I'm even doing. I don't even know what these skits are about. But I'm like, at some point, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out what these skits really are about. And I had to learn that through doing, because I thought I was making a joke. Then I realized I was revealing my own view. Then I realized I was drawing a matrix for behavior, for how people act on one side of the spectrum versus the other. And then I realized I was actually creating a model for a behavior system that if you were to use it, you would be more liked, end up richer, build tons of value in society, and be the man every time you walk into a fucking restaurant. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy that it all came from you uncovering layers and going deeper and deeper. What I found fascinating when I was doing research for this was you talking about...
Thanks for doing research, by the way.
It was fascinating to hear you talk about rich versus really rich is not about money. It's
No.
about how spiritually fulfilled you are. And when I heard you say that, I was like, oh, we're going to have an amazing conversation.
Well, look, I always wondered the difference. I have this beautiful comparison. When I was a young boy, I saw the way that my dad would park his car in New York. So we drive from New Jersey into the Port Authority in the 30s in New York City, and he'd get out of his car, and the attendant would come up, and my dad would fucking just the sickest handshake, the hug, the bro, saying some like dirty jokes, like locker room talk, and I'm like, hey, Dad, are those your friends? He's like, well, yeah, Nick, they look after the car. And I was like, but you know them? He's like, yeah, well, we see them every day. I was like, so they're your friends? He's like, yeah. And I was like, that's pretty cool. My dad's friends with everybody. And then I started to see, we go in the restaurant. They're like, hey, Larry, we got the good table. I'm like, what this is amazing. Everybody knows my dad. This is pretty cool. And then I realized that when I went out with other people's dads, who, by the way, were far richer, far more successful, they didn't get shit. They didn't get the good spot. Oh, hey, you want to leave that overnight? That's a Bentley? Yeah, $200. All right, find another garage. Oh, wait, no, we're fully committed. No, dude, you can't buy a table here. And I saw this. I saw it happen. And I go, why does my dad get the table? And then this guy, you want to talk about wealth flipped on its head. And this guy, who's the CEO of a company, and if I gave you more details, I'd expose exactly who I'm talking about, so I'm not going to. He's got to pay double. He doesn't get the table. He can't get into this place. And then that's when I started my obsession with the big man on campus idea, which I've never put a name on it. It's just the big shot, the big man on campus. Not in I think I'm the big shot, but I have a way of treating people that equals me being treated like the big shot. And you didn't pay for it. You didn't do this. So it's not this this bribery kind of thing that people like to say in the comments. It's just like, I know you're working and you're doing you're working a tough job. So I'm going to make your life as easy as possible. I'm going to take care of you. You know, it's old fashioned, man. It sounds like I'm talking about like some Sinatra era shit, but everyone that goes through life like that has a smooth sailing experience. And so when I realized that, and every morning I wake up, I have the opportunity to be a dick or to be a nice person. And I've tried it both ways. And the nice person, you don't understand. You know, everyone goes, oh, this skit is so fake. It's like, most of those skits aren't fake. They're experiences that I've modified for my viewing audience on social media. And they're real. Like getting the free coffee, sitting there waiting for you, and when the day that you're in a rush, people just know. People have a sixth sense. Like, hey, it's one of our favorite guys. He always bullshits with us. Brought us a 6-pack on Christmas. Give him the fucking coffee. How hard is that? Wouldn't you do it Wouldn't you do it for someone you cared about? What if you walked through your whole life and everybody around you loved you? Could you imagine? It would be like walking on a cloud. Not in some big shot, ego-driven thing. Just like, hey, I'm taking care of you. You're taking care of me. Enjoy your day. Frictionless.
You can imagine then why it was so triggering and impactful in a negative way what happened to you in college became because you have this image in your head of what the ideal looks like with your father. And then in this social scenario, it feels as if you cannot achieve what your father did. So in a way, it is letting him down.
Well, in a way, it was like, maybe I can't joke with everyone. Maybe some people can't take a joke, so I should just stop. There's a book from there's a really weird Fitzgerald short story called is it Four Fists or the Five Fists? I think it's Four Fists. And it's a story of kind of like this arrogant, privileged Princeton student who goes out into the world and he gets punched 4 times throughout the story. And every time he learns this kind of lesson, really he gets put in his place, so to speak. I always use that story as a model. I read it probably too young. I should have read it when I was a little bit older. I was obsessed with Fitzgerald. I've read everything that Fitzgerald has ever written, and I've read everything that Hemingway has ever written as a kid. So I read that story and I go, that's one of your fists, Nick. Let it sink in. That was a lesson. No, I didn't need to punish myself for that. It wasn't one of my fists. And in fact, that situation did more harm to me and to the rest of the world because it took me on a path that I shouldn't have gone on, I think, than anything else. So be aware. Next time you're in a bad mood and you want to dress someone down at work, imagine that cascading effect of what you're about to do. Imagine what you're about to do to that person for the rest of their day. It is no joke when you behave in this way. Yeah.
What advice would you have for somebody who might be in this situation right now of living through a version of someone said something negative to them, or they were hurt in some way by someone, and they are reliving that experience over and over again? What advice could you give them to snap out of it, or to help them take some ownership of their own life and how that comment landed on them?
Sure. So you have to go back to that time, and you have to love that rambunctious, talkative, whatever got you in trouble, right? Because I did this thing for years where I was like, yeah, you were out of control when you were younger. Oh, you were a little too much. And you know what? I'm a little too much. I am a little too much. Fuck it. It's too late. I'm a little too much. Forever. And it's like, that will work for some people and it won't work for others. But what's a problem is if you're a little too much and you're a little too talkative, to be tamping that down and depriving the world of whoever you are and your special gift. That is a crime. That is against nature. That is a serious problem. Because if you were to reopen your love for music or snowboarding or whatever, because someone said snowboarding was stupid or snowboarding's trashy. That's another good one. Snowboarding's trashy. You should learn how to ski. Oh, okay, I'm not going to snowboard anymore. You've just, number one, deprived me of one of the things I love. You've derailed, me from perhaps a passion and a lifelong hobby or something like that. You've changed the course of my life in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The further you get away from this stuff, the worse you are and the worse off I am. Because if you're a baker in your soul and you just want to bake that sweet French bread, and your parents say, or your friends say, being a baker, you'll never get rich. You better go to Wall Street. And then you're there on Wall Street seething every day until you turn fucking 60 and eventually just fucking, your head explodes. Like, that's what you want? No. I want to go out to the bakery where you've made the bread, because you're the best baker ever. And you're going to change the world with your bread, because that's how you change the world. So don't you dare deprive me of your talent and your value. That you not being you steals from me.
It absolutely does. What I want to really highlight, though, is that when a person actually embodies that or lives that, they are the one who is responsible in some way. Otherwise, they're never going to actually be able to change. There is some part in them that is saying, no, that person's right. I can never be a baker. And there's some part in them that has not taken ownership of their own passion or pursuit or belief in themselves to get to the place they want to be. And that's the hard conversation to have with yourself of that person said something, but that person just made noise with their mouth.
Sure.
You took ownership of what that person said and made it your reality.
Right. I mean, easier said than sometimes these things just get thrust upon you.
Yes.
And you're like, I don't know why I don't want to speak up anymore.
Yes.
I don't know what happened.
It's unconscious.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't like to go to the movies anymore. And you realize that, something bad happened to you in the movies. You forgot about it, right? It's like, look, man, introspection is costly, because to be introspective, it means you're not at work. You're not talking to your boss. You're not punching the clock. You're not building a bridge. You're not laying brick. You're not hanging drywall, whatever the fuck, right? You're not trading bonds, right? You're sitting quietly with a notebook being introspective.
Yeah.
And that's expensive for most people. So I don't fault society for not being so darn introspective. It's like, I get it, dude. You don't have time to be introspective. You know, I bought myself time, and to be honest with you, even when I couldn't afford it, I made sure I had some time squirreled away to be introspective, because all the answers are there eventually.
Yeah.
You know, my biggest trick is whenever I take a long haul flight, not even a long haul flight, 2-3 hours, and they're like, you know, we have all the entertainment right here. Would you like a headset? No. Wi-Fi? No. And I just sit there like a lunatic and just stare at the back of the seat with the TV off, and I go, "What's going on, Nick? What's up? You know, what are you worried about? You a little anxious? What are you anxious about? Okay, why? Okay, well, what can you do about it? I could do this and this. Okay, you feel better? You gonna do it? Yep. Okay, what else? Come on, give me something else. Something bubbling up a little bit." And dude, the amount of problems that I've solved from these airplane sessions, oh my God. Entertainment would be the only thing I could point at to say, that's keeping you from asking those questions. Entertainment can be a lot of things. It doesn't mean movies or whatever. It could be a lot of things. Distraction, I should say. So when I'm on that flight, guys, and you see me looking like a madman looking in the back of that seat, just know I'm solving some problem or something is bubbling up, and I'm just like, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this before I land in LaGuardia. You know.
Yeah. Where are you currently not free?
I'm still not 100% myself. I think that if you were to be 100% yourself, this is going to sound absurd. I think when you're 100% yourself, you're famous for no reason. I think that people that are famous for no reason are 100% themselves. I know that sounds not possible, but I think the reason I don't want to call anyone out here. I think the reason why like a Jake Paul, I'm going to call someone out. I think that they're just so themselves that we're like knocked over. It's almost like a magic trick to be yourself in society. You're like, this guy says whatever he wants, does whatever he wants. Take my money. Take my money. Take my attention. Take my money, because all I want to do is just be myself. And so if you're being yourself, it's like pornography. It's like, this is too good. I can't look away. Personality pornography.
Wait, so where are you currently not being yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
God damn, if I knew the answer to that, there's still the characters inside of me that goes, put on the Wall Street cap, put on the Wall Street attitude, put on the social media attitude, put on the knowledgeable attitude. Hey, you're going to meet a billionaire in his $40 million house in the Hollywood Hills. Put on your genius hat. And the joke is, whenever you do that, it just goes horribly. Like, you have to immediately rip that cap off and be like, I'm just going to be myself, whoever the fuck that is.
You're losing presence when you do that.
Yeah, you are.
What happened when you booked time with a billionaire and he didn't show up?
Oh, Jesus, this is so bad. And so crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I flew to Austin. And I booked a special studio with a very, very successful guest for the Really Rich podcast, right? So this cost me, I had guests the day before, okay? But this cost a good amount of money to fly to Austin and book a studio and, you know, spend my entire weekend hanging out with people I don't know, right? So I get to the studio. It's a beautiful studio. We sit down. And the dude just doesn't show up. So I'm like, you know, and there's this guy that kind of wobbles in the background. He's wobbling because he's gigantic and he has a broken leg. So this dude is like 6'5", okay? 6'5", dreads, broken leg, carrying tons of equipment. I'm like, what's wrong with you, dude? He's like, oh, man, I took a bad fall. You know, I'm just waiting here for a gig. I'm a videographer. So this is, you know. We're all the gear's here or whatever. He's chilling. He's waiting for a gig later that day. I go, well, just sit down and at least we'll get the camera focus trained on you. And so yeah, we just start talking, and I learned that the videographer he's a videographer, which everyone goes, that's cool and creative. You must have wanted to be a videographer. But me, because I know that isn't always the case, I'm like, what do you really want to do? Oh, by the way, press record.
Mm.
Okay, so the engineer press record, and this guy proceeds to tell me, this cameraman, his name's Carlos. He's not a cameraman, he's a human being. His name's Carlos. The dude is just like, I actually don't want to be a cameraman. I actually want to teach kids how to play music and instruments, and that will also help them build confidence. I was like, that's the number one. That's the most specific. The more specific, the better. I was like, also, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. So specific, meaning you can pull it off, and it's cool and really beneficial to society. So I was like, well, why aren't you doing it then? He's like, well, it's too big, the funding, blah, blah, blah. And I do this thing where I break really big ideas up into little steps, like these micro steps. And so I played the game with him, and I was like, our micro step was, I took I think $2 or $3 million idea, and I turned it into a $5 Kinko's, FedEx Kinko's idea. So we went from renting an auditorium, buying equipment, PA system, blah, 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 to taking a fluorescent piece of paper that said summer, outdoors, music, and life skills, right? And these papers were going to be slipped under the door in the high school, and there was going to be an email address to sign up and just to take interest. Okay. So I said, don't build anything. See if the kids actually want to do it. Or see if their parents go, oh, this isn't bad. He goes, and I want to keep it really affordable. So put the price on, whatever it is, $50, $100. And then if you get 100 emails, go walk yourself down to the park. Say, hey, can we rent this space, blah, 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 for whatever. We got 100 kids that want to come and learn instruments. Okay, sure. Okay, well, cool. Well, we have the pre-orders. Done. You got your school, right? And then that was all recorded. The billionaire never showed up, and I realized I felt so silly that I expected to learn more from a billionaire.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes the stories of the people who haven't done what they want to do someday can actually be more fruitful and beneficial to the every person and to yourself than somebody who is sitting on top of the mountain.
Yeah. Well, I called it, because I wrote about this in my newsletter, and I called it the haves and the have-not-yets. Because it's like, just because you don't have now doesn't mean you won't have. We're just sitting here at a random point on a plot. Like, for all I know, Carlos is well on his way to doing that right now. And then do we think about Carlos, the videographer, or do we think about Carlos, the guy that started the summer camp, for 1,000 kids in Texas, and, he's helping everybody out with this. Parents get a great solution after school for their kids learn instruments. They all learn a sense of confidence and how to sort of manage their time better. All these kind of life skills that he was talking about. It's just like, cool. Yeah.
But it sounds like you have a skill in that you can help someone break down a big idea into something that people can actually do on the day-to-day. How do you go about doing that?
My whole life is breaking big ideas into little pieces. Because here's the trick. First, start by knowing that you don't know how to do mostly anything. Because anything that you've ever learned how to do, there was a moment where you didn't know how to do it. You just go, I want to do it. And when you really want to do it, you'll learn, right? So when I wanted to play the guitar. Okay, so when I was like 5 or fucking 8, Santa had a little fake Stratocaster under the Christmas tree. I pulled it out. It was my first guitar. Holy shit, right? Just got real. Okay. I was so bad. And then my mom signed me up for lessons, with these dudes with ponytails in southern New Jersey, just like, bro, we got to learn Metallica. Like, I'm just like trying to play, we're playing like nerdy shit. And then it was like, I don't want to play this. And I was just like, I don't know how to play guitar. And the teachers were like, you don't know how to play guitar, and you will never learn how to play guitar. You'll never play. Just stop. You're wasting your mom's money. And so I took the guitar, I stuck it in the back of my room, and I was just like, I'm never going to play guitar again. Fuck this. It's too hard. And then, years later, I picked it back up, and I had the songbook, and I'm like, let me just learn. I don't want to learn stupid songs I don't want to play. I want to learn improvisation. So I learned minor pentatonic, which is the scale that Stevie Ray Vaughan just is like sticking in that pentatonic box. If you listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, that's minor pentatonic. Okay, it's a blues scale. But the joy about the blues scale is for young people, if you start there, you develop a really quick sense of how to improvise, and it's magical. So I said, oh wait, I put on my record. I had an actual record player. Put on my record. I'm not that old. It just I liked the record, so I had a record player.
No one's calling you old.
No, but you moved your head a little bit or something. Something changed. I felt something.
All in your head. It's all in your
So
head.
I put on this record, and I would play over the record improvisationally. Okay, so blues style guitar. And I was like, I like this. And lo and behold, it's so weird. It's so strange. And the story ends in such a strange way. But like a blues guitar teacher moved in to like 2 houses down. Anyway, it was like this girl I went to middle school or elementary school with is her dad. Kind of like came back and set up shop in the house. He's kind of a Rolling Stone, this guy. Truly just a wild blues man. Like,
Wow.
yeah, in the suburbs of fucking New York City and in New Jersey. So I meet this wild teacher. He's got long hair, total hippie kind of guy. He's got like probably 200 grand of guitars in the house. One of the most amazing collections I'd ever seen in my entire life, even to this day. And he goes, Nick, I'm going to teach you how to play guitar. And this guy and I sat in his basement with all the instruments, and he'd let me play whatever I wanted. He had the coolest, everything was awesome. And he said, we're only going to play cool stuff. So bring me what you want to play, and we're only going to play that. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, wait. And one day he just sat me down. He goes, do you want to play in my band?
Wow.
He's like, you're kind of like a circus freak. You're like the 12-year-old blues guitarist. Like, he's like, we could use that.
How old were you?
I was probably like 12 to 14.
Okay.
And yeah, it was cool. I played like a few parties with this guy, and like, I don't know. I loved guitar, and I loved playing guitar. And then I was able to get an acoustic and learn all different styles. And I was playing some nylon and some flamenco and different things, right? It was just music became my whole life. It became how I filtered everything. I became a musician. I wrote music nonstop. It's what I did in the talent shows and things like that. So I became a musician. And by the way, one day I just went over to the guitar teacher's house. He just wasn't there. He was gone, and I have never seen him again.
No way.
Guess why? And I still have his bass. And I won't throw it away because I'm thinking one day he's going to call me and ask for it back.
That's wild.
I have it with me in my place in Miami right now. I swear to God.
Wow.
So if you're listening to this, man, I got your bass, and it's totally fine. I didn't fuck it up.
But that started because I asked you about breaking things down and your ability to do that.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
No, you're good.
Just
I
wanted to,
love the side tangent. Life is made up of the side
yeah.
tangents.
It was a story I haven't really thought about in a long time, but the breaking the big thing. Okay. In life, you will have big ideas. And it is your job to determine if you really want that big idea. And if you do, it is your responsibility to go out and figure out how the fuck to pull it off. My argument is there is no idea that's too big that you can't pull off, because every first step, every test, we'll talk about micro testing, all this stuff, is free. We have so much technology at our fingertips that the big ideas can be broken down into these little free, like, okay, let's go back to our buddy who wants to create a school for a musician program for kids after school, right? He didn't have to transcribe with charcoal on 100 pieces of paper. He creates one on his computer. He emails it to FedEx. They print out 1,000 copies for $10. He pays it, and he's disseminated his idea into the world. And mom and dad of the kids, they don't need to postage stamp a letter to check and see if the program is still. They send an email, costs them nothing, and instantly you know if your program's the real deal or not. In a day. Right? So we have the basics to test anything. I mean, this example that I'm writing about in my book is even the most audacious ideas. And right now in history, it's anything to do with rockets and space exploration. It's so expensive. It's so experimental. We don't even know who could do the thing that we're talking about. And monetization, yeah, we'll figure it out when the aliens fucking give us what we want. It's like, monetization? What monetization, right? So SpaceX really started from an idea. So I'm not saying that the people involved weren't really smart, but they didn't go, oh, well, before we do anything, we need to do impossible shit. It's like, no, we're going to think on this. We're going to build out and map out the plan, and we're going to sell this to investors with just brain power, right? So the craziest shit that you think, like, how the fuck did Elon build a rocket that flips and lands on its whatever? It's like, well, he thought he could do it, and then he just was like, well, if I was going to do it, how would I start? And I guess I would get the smartest people and get them on board. And then after we got the smartest people, I get the smartest people that specialize in this type of technology to go and build a R&D lab and then go and pull it off because we'd have funding. And so, like, yeah, probably like 2 or 3 years I should be able to pull it off. Right? It's not that weird. It's not weird at all, guys. This is how big things get done. So the big thing that I wanted to do this year was write a book, like a major book that's in this fucking store, right? And it was like, I don't know how to do a single thing to do with writing this book and selling it to a major publisher and all this good stuff. So I go, if I were going to write a book, if a man named Nick, who I don't know, how would I tell him how to do it? Well, it turns out that the first thing you need to do is write a book proposal. I already fucked that up. I started to write the book. Okay, so I already fucked that up. And then I said, well, once you do that, a major book you don't call Penguin, or in my case, Hachette. Shout out to Hachette. You guys rock. You don't call Hachette and say, I got a book. They're like, you need an agent. Okay, no problem. I had my, not everyone has a VA or a team, but I had my team bring me 12 agents that I thought that had worked with business books and self-improvement books, and they handed me the list a day later. Cool. Okay. By the way, if I didn't have a VA or a team or whatever, I could do this in 6 hours probably, right? So half day. I had the list. Cool. Now what do I do? I create a really good email. And because I'm a lazy bastard and know too much automations and whatever, I created an email campaign with custom fields that swapped out their names. Sorry, guys. Swapped out their names, swapped out a custom paragraph about them, swapped out authors they'd work with, and I sent out, 20 or 30 emails. Maybe the list was longer, 20 or 30 emails. And I attached my manuscript, which is the wrong thing to attach, but you're supposed to attach a book proposal. And I had 4 meetings, and I interviewed them because I had 4 meetings, and I showed up with an audience. That's a big deal with selling a book, and I narrowed it down to 2, and I chose 1. How did I choose? By the way, even choosing, that was a micro step. I don't even know how to choose an agent. Okay, well, if you were going to choose an agent, how would you do it? Well, I'd probably make different aspects of each person that you care about. So categories. So say, how much do I like them? Experience with similar authors. Okay. Number 3, the prestige of their agency. How long they've been around, how many, whatever. And meaning the connections they might have in the publishing world. And then number 4 was like, this was the X factor. How much they wanted to help with writing my book proposal. So I created this 4 facet scoring system, and I gave everyone a score from 1 to 5 in each of the categories, and I just added it up. So just a simple addition problem, right? And then one person beat the other person by 2 points. I also thought they were cool, and so I chose them. And the choice remains to be the best decision ever. The guy's a fucking man. Jeff, love you, dude. And he sat with me for 6 months to write the proposal. When we went to market, we got 3 offers, and we sold the book within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks. So yeah, in about a year, I'll be putting this book out with Hachette, and the whole thing about these big ideas becoming small little pieces is then you get hooked on the thing of doing big things. Because you go, well, shit, I could do that. Like, I wasn't that bad. Maybe I should do some other crazy shit this week. So my day-to-day is doing crazy shit over and over and over again. So the minute we sold the book to Hachette, I said, what could I do now that would help people right now? Because I know how to write a book, and what could I create another resource to help people? And if I were going to create it, what would it be? So I had an idea for blending an outdoorsy field guide with a how-to manual for entrepreneurship.
Okay.
A little more combinatrix here, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not just going to write a boring book. So I was like, imagine if I created a handbook field guide, but for building stuff. So taking my idea of chopping things down into little pieces, but building a manual on how to do that, right? So in all the free time I have, I wrote that thing, and that's called the Entrepreneurship Field Guide, and hopefully you can go and buy it right now because I think this will be published by the time it's out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So another big idea that got chopped up, and by the way, the Entrepreneurship Field Guide is totally different than the book that's going to come out in a year or so, meaning I had to learn how to do other things because it's going to be more graphical. So I was like, I'm going to audition graphic design agencies in all over the world who have experience doing editorial layout and all the stuff I would never do with the main publication, the main book deal, because they do it for me, right? So I'm building my own thing now, and I learned how to do that. But again, it's just like, once you get in a space where you have a base level of income, you're just like, well, Monday we're going to go interview designers. Tuesday we're going to pick. Wednesday, how the days of the week work? Wednesday, I don't have it all figured out. Wednesday we're going to, choose the color palette. It's just like calmly meander through your journey. Don't get all bent out of shape. Calmly meander through the steps. And when some shit hits the fan, which it invariably will, okay, deal with it. Get back. All right, well, back to the thing. And, I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth who couldn't go and chop their big idea into little pieces and calmly move through the plan. Period. Sorry, I had to say something.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, it's great. And it helps give people a framework that they can think about in their own pursuits, because I think a lot of the times people don't actually want to take the step to break down their big thing, because then it requires them to take responsibility to actually do it.
It also requires them to believe that it's possible to be done. And that's scary. Also, whenever you give your dreams weight, that's scary. You go, maybe I am the great person that I thought I was. No, that's too much. We'll let someone else drive the Rolls Royce. We'll let someone else eat at the nice restaurant. We'll let someone else have a lot of friends. It's like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. Why does he or she get to do it and I don't? I don't know. Right? You ask yourself, like, it's the Tony Robbins, like, ask yourself good questions and you'll get good answers, right? It's like, ask yourself good questions and you'll get good answers.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. You got it. That didn't sound like it at all. Fuck. I'm not an impressions guy, okay?
No, but you're. It's cool how you've broken down the steps that you believe have gotten you to the place that you're going, and that you will continue to use over and over and over again. So when someone is thinking about their own next thing, what are some of the mindsets or beliefs that might trip them up?
The belief that it can't happen, because it can happen. The belief that it's too expensive. The belief that you need resources. Any single idea is possible. The whole deal is like my base level toolkit is like having a vision of where you want to go, and then using iteration to calmly work through the options. The example that I give in the Entrepreneurship Field Guide is, you ever see those big key rings that your custodian, your janitor in your high school used to carry? Huge key rings with like 1,000 keys. It's like, imagine if you saw one of those key rings and you were locked in an escape room. you wouldn't just look at the key ring and go, I'm never going to get out of here. You'd look at it and go, it's going to take a couple minutes, but eventually I'm going to get out of here. Because the key's there. There's 1,000, but like, it's the same thing with life. It's like, all right, eventually I'm going to be doing whatever the fuck I want to do. I was going to say rich, but I don't want to color anyone's vision. It's like, eventually I'm going to have the job of my dreams. Eventually I'm going to create the company. Eventually I'm going to build a fucking rocket. Eventually I'm going to open a bakery. Eventually I'm going to be the top chef in the United States of America. Eventually I'm going to, have the top pizzeria in Brooklyn. Whatever it is. It's like, cool. Just work through the key ring. Eventually you'll get there. And by the way, when I was in my music career, which I thought was my end all be all, and I hit my head on the wall a million times, that's when you go, I'm not on the right, like, the world has to agree. Okay, this is the difference between egoism and just saying, whatever it is that I've chosen today. It's like, no, you still have to operate within what the world is going. What I say is, iterate until you hear applause. And when you hear applause, you go, more of that, more of that, more of that. So for me, my music, I got like a little bit of clapping, Yeah. Like we had some success, but I wasn't on the cover of Rolling Stone. And you bet your ass I wanted to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. Yeah.
But how long?
How long did I do it before I said, this is going to kill me? 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 years full-time professionally, 4 years recording and doing this, but like 2 years living in New Orleans with two really, really great, really, really dangerous bad motherfuckers in my band.
That's from a musical standpoint or from a criminal standpoint?
From a criminal standpoint.
Gotcha.
And from a musical standpoint.
Okay.
In my opinion, they're one and the same.
But
hey, if you want to be a badass, go be a badass. You want to go be a tough guy? Go down and be a tough guy. Try it on for size, man. No one's stopping you. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. I said, okay, you soft motherfucker, you Wall Street, this bullshit, thing that you hate. Go try to be a blues musician in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. See what that's like. That toughened me up pretty quick.
Yeah. I can't help but think of like, well, you're hearing some applause. Like, why not keep going?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would Russ be if he said after 4 years, this isn't?
I think
this isn't it.
When you are not even trying the key in the door, if that makes any sense. You got the key and you're not even in the door. You're pushing the key into the wall because it's like at some point I go, Nick, do you actually want to be a rock star?
Or do you just want to be seen as a rock star?
Thank you.
That's the difference. And the question for you, my friend, is if you're still living that game.
You bet your fucking ass I am, dude. Because this is the ride of a lifetime for me. I'm one of many people out there doing their thing. But I was one of many people out there not doing their thing, not interacting with the world the way that I want to. And now, dude, we're just getting started, I'm just getting started.
With what you're building?
Yeah.
And do you feel joy from the process that you're building, or do you feel joy from being seen as the person who is building it?
The being seen part, for my fragile little soul, it feels good. But what I'm getting into now is like I'm getting to do things that I never would have been able to do. Like I never would have been able to sign a major book deal fresh out of Wall Street. In fact, I tried my hand at writing when I left Wall Street, and I got one little thing published, and then I wrote 30 short stories to all the major, Harper's, New Yorker, all the big, prestigious magazines, and I didn't get a single thing published. And it's like now it's like I have a major book deal. What the fuck? How's this like? Oh, whatever you are, wherever you are now, this is the energy zone. Stick around here, dude. Like good shit's gonna keep happening. So, the applause has to be loud eventually. Otherwise, you get broken the fuck down. Like music for me, it made me question. I was like, are you just hurting yourself now? And like you said, I'm getting that same feeling of being seen, which I don't want my whole life to be this external game of validation. It's not good. It's not good, kids. You don't want to do that. But I feel, well, you know, in pure reality, I'm more seen now doing this than I probably ever could have been as a blues musician. It's just not, you know.
But forget being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing yourself?
Yes, I am seeing myself for the first time. Yeah. Because now I know what the real good shit feels like. And I didn't know what that felt like forever. I mean, maybe when I first wrote my first song on guitar. Like now, when I'm in the podcast studio and I'm having these conversations, I have this meditative state that I go into. It's part of the reason why I wear headphones and just have to wear headphones. It's like, this is like being in the studio. This is a creative endeavor. This is me like cooking, like losing myself, right? And it's a joy that people are here to listen, and hopefully I can continue to bring some value where they'll stick around for the whole ride. Because I know it's a big, going from skits and this kind of humor and trying to say, oh, there's other things I do here that I think you guys might be interested in. Mm-hmm. But of course, it's not my right. They might say, hey, Nick, shut up and play the hits, and then that's my decision. But now we're getting into some real rarefied air and some real territory where you've had success and you want to do something else and the market won't let you do it. Hope that ain't me.
But it's important to be playing the game for yourself in the whole
100%.
Pie of it, because otherwise you just start chasing the audience of where the audience finds value, but never looking at yourself and being like, what do I find valuable? Which it sounds like you are on the journey of becoming.
Yes, on the journey.
Which is an amazing thing.
Yeah, on the journey.
I'd like to say that all roads lead to podcasting, because all of the YouTubers that I love growing up all suddenly have a podcast.
Yeah.
All of the TikTokers, everyone has a podcast now, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's great. More podcasters is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you go down the road of podcasting?
I ran out of good ideas, dude. I was like, fuck, let's try this. But this is great that you asked that, because I didn't start a podcast. I pretended to and waited to see if people liked it. So I had Andrew, who's my intern, who joined a little while ago, just kind of little couple month gig for him. He wanted to learn. He's a content creator himself. And one day I was like, hey, Andrew, you ever been on a podcast before? He's like, no, dude. He's like 19 years old. I was like, okay. Can you read this list of questions? He was like, yeah. I was like, cool. Well, we're going to shoot a podcast today. He was like, all right. And so we shot the podcast in this little crappy studio here in Miami. Not this one. We like this one. In this other crappy little studio in Miami. We shoot the podcast. We cut it up. It's not even a real podcast, dude. It's like a fake podcast. He's asking me questions, and people are like, yo, this is really cool. Yeah, more of that. That's pretty sweet. Nobody said, hey, why is that 19-year-old kid reading from a piece of paper and I've never seen him before or know who he is? No one said anything. It was like, I just was like, and here's the podcast. And people were like, I don't get it, Nick. Why won't you publish the link to the podcast? And I was like, I don't know. I lost it. It's like, because there isn't one. I was testing to see if you wanted it because I've done so many things in my life ass backwards, So we created two, we'll call these mock podcasts, which were really Q&A driven, but I wrote the questions, for God's sakes, right? Like, come on, all right?
Nick's Q&A with himself.
Yeah, it was Q&A delivered, written and delivered by Nicholas Crown. Yeah. And we did it twice, and people were like, you are such a gatekeeping asshole. Where is the link to this podcast? And I was like, all right, well, I guess we're starting a podcast,
But to me, it rings of insecurity. It rings of you being insecure to post the episode.
I'm on TikTok, for God's sake.
No, but seriously,
where you go for insecurity.
It's like you wouldn't post the full thing because you were scared of what other people would think.
No,
if they didn't like it. That's not true. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
This is not insecurity. This is hyper. This is risk and money maintenance. It's how much risk do I want to take with money, meaning going and building a studio, whatever it is, buying all the equipment, and reputational risk. How much am I going to throw myself into a new format without knowing if people want it? So I use micro tests as risk mitigation techniques. Lord knows at this point I was not afraid to be on camera.
Understood.
Not afraid for millions of people to see my mug. This was like, I need to know. Nobody realizes how much money and work goes into creating a podcast. It's fucking, not to mention, I didn't know how to create a podcast, nor did I ever do one to know if I liked it.
Yes.
So it was trying to, I moved the goddamn chair.
You get excited.
Woo!
And I'm appreciative for you for correcting me on that, because I think that's something that I don't realize is that as you progress in your life, in your career, it's more expensive to take risks. And so my advice to people is like, yo, just do 100 podcast episodes, which is great advice if you just graduated college and you don't know anything about anything, and you can find and test and refine.
Right.
But if you have a big audience, or you have a lot of money, or you have more resources that are coming at your head, doing 100 podcasts out of nowhere is just like not good advice.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well,
thank you for correcting.
Yeah.
It is good advice, but it's like, it's got to be contextual to that person in that circumstance.
And why say do 100? Say, well, your goal should be 100, but let's see if the first 3 or 4 go well. The first 10, let's see if you like it. So I have a really good friend who's a content creator, huge TikToker. And he called me the other day. We're going to keep him anonymous, okay? He called me the other day. And he just said, I really don't like doing this anymore, man. Like I'm getting burnt the fuck out. I'm not making the money I want to make. I really want to be doing something else. I want to be doing comedy and this and that. He goes, so like I found another manager and they've set me up with all the stuff to stream, and I'm going to be doing streaming, and would you want to be on my stream? And I said, hey bud, have you ever streamed before? He goes, well, no, but to me it's just kind of like a podcast. I was like, I didn't know you played video games. He goes, I don't, but it doesn't matter because, I could suck, but my audience is still big. I go, dude, the answer to come on your show is, like I'll do whatever. I don't give a shit. But like, you don't even know how to do this yet. And he's like, well, yeah. I was like, so the answer is yes, only if you make it. And he's like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm like, so do 70. Okay. There's a number supposedly on Twitch. I just learned. If you stream for 75 hours, that's when you're allowed to be monetized, which I think is so genius.
Yeah.
Because what that says is, after 75 hours, you'll either do this forever or you'll never do it again. So I said to him, go get your driver's license, do the 75 hours on Twitch, and then call me, because you're either going to say, Nick, I met the coolest people. This audience is so much cooler than TikTok. I love playing the games. People love me. It's so much fun. Or you know what you're going to say? Get me out of this fucking room. I can never be in here again. My bedroom, the walls are closing in on me. I hate this. I don't want to put a control in my hand ever again. I'm never going to play another video game. Because you're going to know. So don't let like someone hand down a model for you and say, well, this is what everyone else is doing. You might as well. It's like, you can look at it and turn it around in your hand like a fucking Rubik's Cube and be like, and like some people will make the decision on that. My suggestion is actually play with it. And my word for that is the micro test. Just playing with it. Yeah.
I love the 75-hour. I think that's such a useful thing for people to think about whatever pursuit they're playing with or thinking about.
Yeah.
After doing 75 hours of the guitar, whether you're going to continue playing the guitar.
Yeah.
After 75 hours of podcasting, after 75 hours of yoga or lifting weights or running. But most people don't even give themselves the 75 hours.
No.
Because it's hard.
And here's the scary thing. You make the decision before the 75 hours.
Yeah.
So a good example would be, I want to go work on Wall Street because that's where the guys with the cool suits, the crazy personalities, all the money, all the watches, all the status, all the best restaurant reservations, and all this Hollywood bullshit that I put in my head. That's really why I wanted to go to Wall Street, guys. I didn't give a fuck about doing like complex math problems. Like I wanted to just make a lot of money really fast.
Yes.
And instead of saying, well, let me just try it on for size, I was like, that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing. And if, by the way, I go there and I don't like it, it doesn't matter. I will still stay there forever to make the money and do this thing. It's like, no. Guys, here's how it works. Go there, and if you hate it, leave. I had an opportunity. My first job was, not my first job. My second job was I worked as a summer intern at a major Madison Avenue advertising agency. Now, let me tell you, I was like, oh, advertising, this is for like the creative types, right? I already had a negative like opinion of, which is hilarious, of my own self, where I was like, oh, I'm a creative person, but I'm like, creative people, they must not make a lot of money. That's why they're here at this ad. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars at this ad agency, by the way. I go through the program. I am the guy that they can't stop from working. I am a nerd. I'm working around the clock. I'm leading the winning team. I'm walking around thinking of taglines in my head. I'm like fucking Don Draper at this place, okay? Like I'm like, this is the best, right? And the CEO of the company, after the program, she took me aside, and she's friends with my stepmom. Not that this is a story of some weird nepotism. It's not. I got the damn job on myself, and I was the biggest nerd. But she knew my stepmom because my stepmom they were a client of each other's, right? So the CEO, she said, Nick, I'm going to tell you what we're going to pay you if you wanted to work here. And I already know you're going to say no. And she said, we'd start you out as a creative. That's where you shined. It's creative. We'd start you off at a junior creative, and your salary is $35,000 a year. And I just said, well, great to meet you. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll see you never. And the joke is my first job on Wall Street, I think the starting whatever the summer or whatever the analyst, it was 65 or 70. I don't remember what the fuck it was. Okay. It's like in 2 years, I would have been running my own fucking $1 billion ad agency if I just stuck it out and making 35 grand. It was so short-sighted. It was so stupid. And it was so driven by a sense of not believing in your own interests and in yourself. It was the worst, dumbest fucking thing that I could have done. It would have saved myself. I went to Wall Street. I learned a whole nother way the world works. And I'm thankful for that. You're not going to go anywhere and learn nothing. But, man, I would have just skipped the whole... Whew.
What happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way.
Yeah.
Because it didn't.
Right. I know.
And arguing with reality is where a lot of suffering comes from.
Well, allow me to do that.
And you can suffer if you'd like, but you also don't have to. But it's a good reminder that you got to follow the joy of what lights you up, whether or not the dollar sign is there, because there are ways for the dollar sign to get there if you believe in yourself enough. And that's why believing in yourself and understanding yourself is at the core of this podcast. And it is really cool to watch you get closer and closer to that journey throughout looking at your story and looking at you today versus the you that would have rejected that offer is a growing individual.
Right.
And so it's very cool to witness that and to see that progression. So thank you for spending the time here today. I like to end these podcasts with a challenge. A challenge points to the place in your heart you believe someone should take the content that we talked about and actually do something with it. Does a challenge come to mind?
Yeah, the challenge is that thing that you said, oh, that's silly. The thing that you said, I'd never be able to pull this off. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the connections. I don't have the time. It's like play the game where you think about the molecular little test of the big crazy idea and go out, spend the 2 days, 3 days to create the test, whether it's Kinko's, whether it's in a cold email, whether it's knocking on doors, whether it's setting up a table in the middle of Times Square with whatever you got, and waiting until you get a ticket, and just go and do it. Because the truth is in that little test, you'll get more information about what the next step might be, and more firepower if it works out than anything else, than any motivational course or whatever. You're going to get it right there from real people in real life when people say, you know what? This is the best chocolate chip cookie I've ever fucking had.
Very well said. Nicholas Crown, ladies and gentlemen, where can we send people to connect with you further?
Yeah, nicholascrown.com. You guys can't avoid me. I'm just going to keep creating these silly videos. You're going to have to watch them.
I love it. We'll all linked below.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me,
much.
man. Appreciate it.
This was great.